The handcuffs bit into Elena's wrists as the police cruiser pulled away from the house. Through the mesh screen, she watched Lydia standing in the doorway, holding her daughter, close to her chest like a prize. The clock on the dashboard flipped to 12 a.m. The deadline had passed. She had lost everything. But that was the end of the story. 13 hours earlier, Elena had pressed her silver Yale key into the front door lock. It wouldn't turn. She frowned, jiggled the handle. The door was already unlocked. The rain hammered against the porch roof as she stepped into the hallway, leaving her wet umbrella in the porcelain stand. The air smelled thick and wrong. Heavy lavender perfume, the kind she would never wear. Her shoes squeaked against the rug. She entered the living room. Lydia was standing by the sofa in a beige knit cardigan and pearls, holding their wedding photo. The frame caught the light as Lydia turned toward the glass coffee table and placed the photo face down on the bottom shelf. With deliberate precision, she replaced it with a porcelain figurine of a shepherdess. Elena's leather handbag fell from her hands to the floor with a soft thud. Her fingers began to tremble. "Lydia, how did you get in here? We never gave you a key." Lydia turned slowly, a cold smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a gleaming gold key. She held it between two fingers, dangling it like a prize. "Mark gave it to me, dear," she said, her voice sugar-sweet and precise as a razor. A mother should always be able to check on her son's well-being. Elena's eyes moved across the room. The curtains were different. No longer her linen ones, but heavy maroon velvet that made the space feel suffocated and small. She could barely breathe. "Get out," Elena said, her voice dropping into something dangerous. "Now, and leave the key on the table." But Lydia didn't move. She only smiled wider. 10 minutes later, a silver SUV pulled into the driveway, its headlights cutting through the rain. Mark stepped out, holding a briefcase over his head like a shield. Elena was already on the porch as he approached, her body rigid. Behind her, Lydia emerged, trying to push past, to reach Mark first. Elena blocked the doorway with her body. Lydia's hand shot out and grabbed Elena's upper arm. Her nails, perfectly manicured, sharp, dug into the skin. Elena winced and tried to shake her off, but Lydia's grip only tightened. "Get away from him," Lydia hissed. Elena turned, pushing her shoulder into Lydia's chest. They grappled on the wet porch, rain streaming down their faces. Lydia swung her heavy designer handbag in a wide arc. It connected with the side of Elena's head, a dull, sickening thud. Pain exploded behind Elena's left eye. Elena stumbled back. Lydia pushed harder, trying to force her off the porch into the muddy bushes. Elena grabbed for Lydia's coat, pulling her down to one knee. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Mark's voice broke through the chaos. He dropped his briefcase in the mud and rushed between them, prying their hands apart. His hands were weak, ineffective. Elena's face was red, already swelling. A bruise was forming on her temple like a flower blooming in fast motion. "Stop, both of you." Lydia immediately turned on the tears. They came instantly, practiced, perfect. She clutched her wrist and pointed a trembling finger at Elena. "She attacked me, Mark." Her voice broke with manufactured anguish. "I just wanted to surprise you with dinner." Later that night, Elena sat at the kitchen island with an ice pack against her temple. Mark's phone was charging on the granite counter. It buzzed with a new message. She stared at it. The phone buzzed again. She picked it up. It wasn't locked. She opened the thread with Mom, and her thumb began scrolling. Past today's messages, back through the week, back 2 weeks. There. A message from Mark to Lydia dated 14 days ago. Here's the code for the security system, too. 8821. Elena is getting suspicious, so only go in when she's at the gym. Her hands started to shake. She scrolled further. A photo Lydia had sent him. It was a photo of Elena's private journal, the leather-bound one she kept on her nightstand. The photo showed an opened page. Her handwriting, her words about her childhood trauma, about the things she'd never told anyone. Lydia's hand was visible at the edge of the frame, holding the journal open for the camera. The caption beneath it read, "She's even more unstable than we thought. We need to start the process of getting you out of this marriage before she ruins the family name." Mark entered the kitchen, drying his hair with a white towel. He saw her holding the phone and froze mid-motion. "You gave her my journal," Elena said. Her voice was flat, dead. "You let her in to spy on me." Mark's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came. 3 days later, Elena was in a grocery store parking lot, loading shopping bags into her trunk. She noticed a black sedan with tinted windows parked 2 rows over. It had been there since she arrived. She'd watched it the entire time she was in the store. As she slammed her trunk and jumped into the driver's seat, the sedan's door opened. Gary stepped out, Mark's brother, wearing a leather jacket and dark sunglasses. He ran toward her car, his fist raising. The window exploded with sound as his knuckles struck the glass. Bang, bang, bang. Elena reversed hard, the tires screeching against the asphalt. Gary had to jump back to avoid being hit. The smell of burnt rubber filled the air. Elena peeled out of the parking lot, weaving between cars. In her rearview mirror, Gary sprinted back to his sedan and roared after her, weaving through the parking lot traffic with single-minded purpose. On the main road, the chase intensified. Elena's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. She took a sharp right onto a side street. Gary followed, his bumper inches from her rear end. He accelerated and tapped her bumper deliberately, causing her car to fishtail. She felt the back end sliding, the world tilting sideways. Her fingers yanked the steering wheel hard to the left. She pulled a U-turn into a narrow alleyway between 2 brick buildings. Gary's larger sedan couldn't make the turn as quickly. He hit a steel dumpster with a tremendous metallic crash. Elena gunned the engine and escaped, watching in the mirror as he tried to reverse out from behind the obstacle. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the wheel. That evening, Elena was in the nursery, folding baby clothes. Blue onesies, soft blankets. She noticed something, a glint of light coming from the eye of a teddy bear sitting on the shelf. She picked up the bear. It was too heavy, too solid. She felt something hard embedded in the head. Her fingers worked at the stitching behind the ear, pulling, tearing the fabric apart with methodical anger. A small black square device fell into her palm. A spy camera, no bigger than her thumbnail, the lens no larger than a pea. She dropped it on the bed and started tearing the room apart. Behind the cover of the smoke detector, another camera. Inside the vent in the master bathroom, a third. She lined them up on the bed and stared at them. 3 black squares, 3 eyes. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. A man's voice, distorted, menacing, came through the speaker. "I see you found our little gifts, Elena. You really shouldn't have broken the bear. It's expensive." Elena didn't speak. "We're watching you even when you think you're alone. Mark knows." At the bottom was Elena's signature. Perfectly forged, perfectly convincing. "Your house is already sold," Lydia said, "to a holding company owned by me." Elena saw Gary's keys sitting on the table next to his elbow. A skull keychain dangled from the ring. He had keys to everywhere now. At 11 p.m., Elena was in the kitchen, frantically stuffing a diaper bag with formula. She could hear Lydia's voice from the living room, singing softly to her daughter. Mark appeared in the doorway, blocking the back door exit. He grabbed Elena's wrists and pinned them to the counter. "It's for your own good," he was crying, his voice cracked and broken. "My mom said you're sick. She said—" Elena screamed. She kicked him hard in the shin. Her wrist came free. She grabbed the cast-iron skillet from the stovetop. She swung. It connected with his shoulder with a sickening crunch. He fell back against the refrigerator, sliding to the floor. He was gasping, crying, clutching his shoulder. Gary burst into the kitchen a second later. He tackled Elena from behind, slamming her into the kitchen island. They fell to the tile floor together, the air knocked from her lungs. Elena's hand found a glass jar of honey on the floor that had fallen in the struggle. She smashed it against Gary's forehead. Glass shattered. Honey and blood mixed together, splattered across his face. She scrambled up, her clothes covered in sticky amber liquid, and ran toward the stairs. But Lydia was standing at the top, holding the sleeping baby wrapped in a white blanket. Elena froze. Lydia descended the stairs slowly, her face a mask of serene hatred. She held the baby tightly, one arm cradling it, the other steady against the railing. Elena was on her knees at the bottom of the stairs, reaching up. "Please, Lydia, just give me my daughter. Please," Elena whispered. "Don't do this." Lydia dropped a bank statement on Elena's head. It fluttered down. Elena picked it up with shaking hands. The balance showed $0. The joint account was empty. Red ink stamped across the top. Insufficient funds. Lydia pulled out a second document. It was a deed of sale. Elena's signature was at the bottom, the same forged signature. The house had been sold to a holding company owned by Lydia. "You have no money, no home, and in 30 minutes, no child," Lydia said. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "You are a ghost, Elena." Elena looked at the clock. 11:45 p.m. She heard police sirens in the distance, getting louder. Lydia smiled. "I called them," she said. "I told them you attacked Mark and Gary. They're coming to take you away." The front door was kicked open at 11:58 p.m. 2 officers entered with flashlights and guns drawn. Red and blue lights pulsed through the windows, strobing across the furniture, the walls, the faces of everyone in the room. Mark was standing now, holding a blood-soaked towel to his shoulder. He pointed at Elena. "She just snapped. She hit me with a pan." An officer grabbed Elena's arms and forced them behind her back. Cold steel handcuffs clicked shut on her wrists. Elena was pushed toward the door. She looked back one final time. Lydia was standing by the fireplace, rocking the baby, whispering, "Finally," under her breath. Elena was shoved into the back of the police cruiser. She watched through the window as the house, her sanctuary, was swallowed by darkness. She rested her forehead against the cold glass. The clock on the cruiser's dashboard flipped to 12 a.m. The deadline had passed. She had lost everything. But Elena was a data security analyst. She had known about Lydia's intrusions weeks before the woman walked through the front door. She had prepared. At 2 a.m., in an interrogation room at the police station, Elena sat handcuffed to a metal table. A detective sat opposite her, a yellow folder open in front of him. Elena leaned forward. "Check my necklace," she said. Her voice was cold, precise. "The locket. It's not a locket." "I'm a data security analyst, detective. I knew Lydia was in the house weeks ago." The detective removed the silver locket from her neck and opened it. Inside was a micro SD card and a tiny activated microphone transmitter. A green LED light blinked steadily. It had been recording since Lydia walked in. The SD card has every conversation where Lydia and Mark discussed forging the deed and draining the accounts, Elena said. It's all there. The detective plugged the card into a laptop. Audio played through the tiny speakers. Lydia's voice. Once she's in the psych ward, we split the house money 3 ways. Elena smiled. And detective? Check the cloud. My phone was streaming the nursery cameras, their cameras, to a private server. They didn't know I'd hacked their feed. At 4 a.m. the police returned to the house. They kicked down the front door. Lydia was in the living room, drinking tea. Officers went straight for her. She tried to stand, but they were already moving. She was cuffed before she could speak. Gary was tackled in the kitchen hallway. He was still covered in honey and blood. He fought back with animal rage, but 4 officers pinned him down. His forehead was bandaged where the glass had cut him. His eyes were wild. Mark was found in the bedroom, packing a suitcase. He was cuffed and led out, trying to look at Elena as she walked in. But she looked through him as if he didn't exist. Elena walked into the nursery. The room was quiet. She picked up her daughter from the crib. The baby woke up and gurgled, tiny fists reaching up. As Lydia was led past the nursery door in handcuffs, Elena blocked her path. She held the baby close. You'll never see her again, Elena whispered. Her voice was lethal, controlled. And the holding company? I've already filed to freeze those assets. You won't have a cent for a lawyer. 6 months later, Elena sat on the balcony of a high-rise apartment as the sun set over the city. She held a glass of wine. The city lights were starting to twinkle below her, spreading out like scattered diamonds. A newspaper lay on the wicker table beside her. The headline read, Lydia Vance sentenced to 15 years for fraud and kidnapping conspiracy. Below it was a photo of Lydia in a prison jumpsuit, her face gaunt, her eyes hollow. Elena picked up a small envelope from a private investigator. She opened it slowly. Inside was a DNA test result. The document showed something remarkable. Mark was not Lydia's biological son. She had stolen him from a hospital 35 years ago. The real family had been found. The hospital records had been uncovered. Elena had been the one who found them. Elena had been the one who tipped off the authorities after discovering the truth in old case files buried in public records. One punch? Done. She picked up a silver lighter from the table and held it to the corner of the DNA test. The paper caught fire, the edges curling black, the text dissolving into ash. She watched the flame consume it. The ashes lifted in the evening breeze and scattered over the balcony, disappearing into the air above the city. She went inside and locked the sliding glass door behind her. The biometric lock engaged with an electronic beep. She pressed her palm against the scanner. It lit up green. Safe,